Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a spine-chilling treat for you. Stories that explore the primal fear of being alone, of being vulnerable, of knowing that something is wrong but not knowing what or where or when. Get ready to hear 10 terrifying true stories of people who were home alone, each more unsettling than the last. These are the kinds of stories that make you want to leave the lights on at night. Stories that remind you to double-check your locks.
Our first story takes us to a quiet suburban home where a young woman named Sarah was enjoying a peaceful evening alone. The neighborhood was serene, with the occasional distant bark of a dog or the hum of a passing car. Sarah had the house to herself, a rare luxury she cherished. It was a stormy night, rain lashing against the windows, wind howling like a banshee. The weather had taken a sudden turn, transforming the peaceful evening into a tempestuous night. The trees outside swayed violently, their branches scratching against the house like skeletal fingers. Sarah was curled up on the couch, lost in a book, when she heard it. A noise from the attic. The sound was faint at first, almost imperceptible over the din of the storm. She tried to ignore it, thinking it was just the house settling. At first, she dismissed it as the storm, but the sound came again, this time a distinct thud. It was louder, more deliberate, as if something heavy had been dropped. The creaking of the old attic door followed, sending a chill down her spine. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was home alone, her family out of town, and the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. The sense of unease grew stronger with each passing second. She debated whether to investigate or to call someone for help. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap.
Our next story takes us to the home of Mark, a man who lived alone in an old, creaky house. Mark had always felt a sense of unease in the basement, a damp, musty space filled with shadows. One day, Mark was doing laundry, the washing machine humming in the otherwise silent house, when he noticed something strange. The basement door, which he always kept closed, was slightly ajar. He cautiously approached the door, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. What he found on the other side would chill him to the bone.
This story revolves around a series of chilling phone calls that left Emily, a young woman living alone, in a state of terror. Emily had just moved into her new apartment, excited to start a fresh chapter in her life. Little did she know, her sense of security would soon be shattered. It began innocently enough, wrong numbers, hang-ups, but then the calls took a sinister turn. At first, she dismissed them as harmless pranks, but the frequency and tone of the calls quickly changed. The voice on the other end of the line was a raspy whisper, barely audible yet filled with malice. Each call sent shivers down her spine, making her feel more and more vulnerable. The voice never spoke, but Emily could hear the sound of heavy breathing, as if the caller was right outside her door. She would often find herself peering out the window, searching for any signs of an intruder. The calls became more frequent, more menacing, and Emily's fear grew with each ring of the phone. She started to dread the sound of the phone, knowing it would bring another wave of terror. She contacted the police, but with no caller ID and no way to trace the calls, they were powerless to help. Emily felt trapped in her own home, her sanctuary turned into a prison by the phantom caller.
Imagine this. You're home alone, night has fallen, and you're about to close the curtains when you see it. A shadowy figure staring through the window. That's exactly what happened to David, a man who lived alone in a secluded cabin in the woods. David had always felt safe in his isolated home, surrounded by trees and the sounds of nature. But this night, something felt different. As he drew the curtains, his heart leapt into his throat. There, in the reflection of the window pane, was the silhouette of a tall, slender figure.
This story takes us into the terrifying experience of Maria, a single mother who came home to find her front door mysteriously locked from the inside. She had just returned from grocery shopping, her arms laden with bags, when she reached for her keys. But something was wrong. The door was already locked. She fumbled with her keys, her heart pounding, but the deadbolt wouldn't budge. She was sure she had left it unlocked. She always did. But now there was no mistaking it. The door was locked from the inside.
This chilling tale centers around the experience of Lisa, a woman who lived alone and began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that she was constantly being watched. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. She noticed small things out of place: a curtain left open, a chair moved slightly from its usual spot. Then, one day, she found something that sent shivers down her spine. A footprint, clear as day in the dust beneath her bedroom window.
Chapter 7. The Disappearing Keys. Our next story is about a man named Michael who was plagued by a series of strange occurrences in his apartment, starting with his keys. Michael was an ordinary man living in a small, cozy apartment. He had a routine, a place for everything, and everything in its place. But then, the inexplicable began to happen. He would place his keys on the kitchen counter, only to find them missing a few hours later. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. He searched high and low, turning his apartment upside down, but the keys were nowhere to be found. He checked under furniture, inside drawers, and even in the most unlikely places. Then, just as mysteriously, they would reappear, exactly where he had left them. It was as if they had never been gone, mocking his frantic search. At first, he thought he was simply misplacing them. But as the incidents continued, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The frequency of these occurrences increased, and with each episode his unease grew. It was as if someone was messing with him, toying with his sanity. The once familiar and comforting environment of his home began to feel eerie and unsettling. Michael started to feel paranoid, constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering if he was truly alone in his apartment.
Imagine lying in bed, the house silent except for the sound of your own breathing, when suddenly you hear it, footsteps, slow and deliberate, just outside your bedroom door. That's what happened to Amanda, a young woman home alone one quiet evening. She froze, her heart pounding in her ears as the footsteps came closer, stopping right outside her door. She held her breath, listening intently, but the sound had stopped. Silence. Then a soft creak, as if someone was trying to open her bedroom door.
This story takes us to the home of John, who lived alone in a small apartment. He had always been a private person, keeping to himself. But one day he received a note that shattered his sense of security. It was a simple note, handwritten in crude letters, slipped under his door. "I'm watching you," it read. At first, John dismissed it as a prank. But as the days turned into nights, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He started noticing things. A car parked across the street, a figure lurking in the shadows, always watching, always there.
This final, and perhaps most disturbing story, is about a chilling discovery made by a woman named Jessica. She had been feeling uneasy in her own home, a sense of being watched, a feeling that something was just not right. One day, while cleaning her bedroom, she noticed a small black object hidden behind her bedside lamp. Curiosity got the better of her, and as she reached behind the lamp, her blood ran cold. It was a camera, a small, hidden camera, pointed directly at her bed.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-tingling tales. Remember to be aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, and never ever dismiss that feeling that something is wrong. Stay safe, and remember, you never know what might be lurking in the shadows.